It speaks volumes as to the kind of fall Chelsea have experienced this season, that a 2-0 loss to Real Madrid in the quarterfinals of the Champions League was greeted almost with relief at some quarters, that okay, the loss probably wasn't as heavy as most people expected it to be at the Santiago Bernabeu. Yet, would you call me crazy if I said that Chelsea could have actually gotten more from the game if they had not made a tactical blunder to start the match, which ended up costing them in the long run? Yes, we'll be taking a look at the tactics used by interim manager Frank Lampard, explaining why exactly he went that way, and also talking about why it was, in hindsight, the wrong move, and in fact was proved to be the wrong move about 10-15 minutes into the game, when Chelsea were totally pinned back and unable to make any sort of attacking plays, or at least useful attacking plays, in the opposition half. In fact, that and a combination of other factors was what led to Chelsea losing 2-0. But the main factor, one that we thought required more analysis, was the formation that Chelsea chose, or the system that Chelsea used on this particular night. Let's quickly take a look at what it is that Chelsea had used. Now, you'll see on your screen now the formation that Chelsea had used. It was a 3-5-2. So you had three centre backs in Fofana, Thiago Silva and Kalidou Koulibaly, with Reece James and Ben Chilwell at the right wing back and left wing back positions, along with three central midfielders and two forwards. Now, what we're going to do is explain why it is that Chelsea used this formation and how it backfired. To do so, however, we'll be making a few interesting lines and highlighting a few key points. Now, when you're talking about how it is or why it is Chelsea used this, the aim of it was simple. It was to isolate this particular area which I have boxed. It was to ensure that Real Madrid would not actually attack them centrally too much, and that they would have to be forced wide. In defense, or rather in attack, what the wing backs would do is progress forward. So Reece James would take up this area, Ben Chilwell would take up this area, and what would therefore happen thereafter is that these guys would be able to join in with the two centre forwards in João Felix and Raheem Sterling. However, what happened was the sheer defensive nature of this particular tactic, and trust me when I say it was pretty defensive, because three centre midfielders and three centre backs means you're looking to defend a lot of space, meant that the few times Chelsea had some possession, they weren't able to do all that much with it, and therefore what happened was that the central midfielders were generally speaking in and around the same line. What is required in such a formation is that one of them makes forward runs when Chelsea have the ball to add an extra body in attack. But this was not in fact happening. So Chelsea's three midfielders were sitting deep, the three centre backs were also sitting deep, and the wing backs were often going forward. What that did was it gave Real Madrid's wingers space to attack here. These areas were often where they attacked, and they left Chelsea very, very vulnerable, because the centre backs were more often than not having to deal with the threat. And what happened thereafter was that the wing backs, who were supposed to be helping out more in attack, were oftentimes caught forward and not able to help in defense. That was the major problem when it comes to Chelsea's approach, if you're looking at it from this particular, let's say, angle. Now, if we're talking about what it is that, went wrong in the larger scheme of things, it wasn't just the tactics, because I did explain why it is that Chelsea's tactics against Real Madrid failed, and they failed miserably because within the first 20 minutes itself, they were making plenty of inroads through the middle as well as the wings, meaning Chelsea were vulnerable from all areas. However, what was even worse was that there was one too many individual mistake that was in fact being made by the Chelsea players. So what was happening was that key players at key times were making mistakes. Wesley Fofana at centre back was making a few mistakes, lucky not to be caught out. The defense in general was not doing well. Kepa Arrizabalaga totally at fault for the second goal. Marc Cucurella was at fault for getting Ben Chilwell sent off. So there were plenty of individual mistakes, and the attack, as I said, lacked any threat. In fact, the two centre forwards who were playing, which was João Felix and Raheem Sterling, were more often than not having to toil up front alone, because of the simple fact that they weren't getting really that much support. The wing backs were coming forward, but there wasn't that extra additional body from midfield, and therefore they had a pretty hard time. Now, to be fair to Lampard, the caretaker manager, he did in fact concede that this was going to be a problem, and he said that they did have a hard time. Let's see what it is he said. He said that, look, the game for Raheem Sterling and João Felix was a tough match. They had to put in a lot of work, and their main threat was on the counter-attack or protecting the ball. It was a difficult night for us at the top end of the pitch. It's a pretty astute observation, but what Lampard failed to mention was that this was in fact pretty much his call. He wanted the players to be more compact and not concede goals, but there was little plan of how to navigate things when going forward, which is where Chelsea really struggle. Real Madrid are not a perfect side by any means. Yes, they're good at moments and they are very clinical at taking their chances when presented, but there were times when they looked vulnerable, and if Chelsea had been a little more brave and pushed forward, maybe, just maybe, they would have had something to show from this leg instead of going home with nothing. Instead, what they've done is traveling back to Stamford Bridge with a 2-0 deficit to overcome. And let's be fair, Chelsea were never going to be the favourites here, not after the kind of season they've been having, and not least considering the fact that they were up against a Real Madrid side who, whilst not exactly dominant themselves, know how to turn up when the lights are shining brightest. This Chelsea side, however, lacking in, very much in transition, lacking in cohesion, a complete mess. And it seems unlikely that they'd be able to turn over this deficit. Yes, stranger things have happened, but if we see more tactical blunders like this, then Chelsea might very well be staring at a home defeat and a rather meek knockout of the UEFA Champions League, a far cry from where they were just last season when they were in the semis and actually competing to make it to the finals again, or where they were 2 years back when they were competing in the final and winning it. Thank you guys so much for joining us in this particular video. If you enjoyed it, please don't forget to like it, share it with your friends, subscribe to the channel, tap the bell icon, leave us a comment, follow us on Instagram, Twitter and Facebook, and last but not least, don't forget to download the AajTak app. Plus, if you're already on the channel, go ahead and check out some other videos we've done. For now though, from my side, goodbye.